The alien market was alive with noise and color, voices mixing like a storm. Stalls lined both sides of the wide street, selling glowing fruits, steaming drinks, and tools that shimmered under the twin suns. Traders shouted, buyers bargained, children ran between legs, and creatures with strange wings or tails filled the air with chatter. It was a place of life, but also of chaos. Then, without warning, everything changed. Near the center of the market, an alien girl stumbled forward. Her skin, pale and glowing faintly, looked drained of life. She clutched her chest, tried to breathe, and fell to her knees. The crowd closest to her gasped but did not move. Some stepped back, others whispered in fear. The girl swayed once, then collapsed fully on the dusty ground. A strange silence spread. Traders stopped shouting. The laughter of children faded. Even the smell of hot food seemed weaker. Everyone watched, but no one helped. "She's cursed," someone muttered. "Don't touch her," another hissed. "If you go near, you'll bring bad luck on your family," an old alien warned. The human stood at the edge of the crowd, tall and quiet. His name was Daniel. He had come to this market to buy supplies for his small workshop. But now he could not look away. He saw the girl's fingers twitch, weakly scraping against the stone as if begging someone to notice. Her breathing was shallow, her lips trembling. Still no one moved. Merchants folded their arms, pretending not to see. Guards at the far gate glanced at her, then turned their heads. Parents pulled their children closer, whispering warnings in their ears. Everyone wanted her gone, but none wanted to take responsibility. Daniel felt anger rise inside him. He had seen this before, on Earth, in places where people looked away from suffering. He remembered a child lying on a cold street back home, people stepping over her, too afraid to get involved. That memory burned in his chest. He had promised himself never again. So, while the rest of the market stayed frozen, Daniel stepped forward. His boots echoed on the stone floor. The whispers grew louder. "What is that human doing? He doesn't understand. Fool. He'll bring death on himself." Daniel ignored them. He reached the girl's side, crouched, and placed a hand near her neck. A faint pulse. Still alive. Her skin burned with fever, her breath shallow. She was dying right there in front of them. Without hesitation, Daniel slid his arms under her fragile body and lifted her up. She was lighter than he expected, bones pressing against her skin as if she had not eaten in days. Her head rolled against his chest, silver strands of her hair catching the light. The crowd gasped. Some stepped back as if he carried fire. He touched her. Madness. He won't survive the night. But Daniel kept walking. He carried her close, shielding her from the stairs. Her eyes fluttered open for a second, large, glowing, faintly blue. She looked at him with confusion and fear. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then her eyes closed again. Daniel's jaw tightened. Whoever she was, whatever curse people believed, he could not leave her there, not when she was helpless. At the edge of the market, a guard stepped forward, raising a hand. "Put her down, human. She is marked. She is not for you." Daniel stopped, meeting the guard's eyes. The alien's voice was strong, but his body leaned back in fear, unwilling to touch the girl himself. Daniel could see it. The same fear that kept the entire market frozen. They all wanted her gone, but none had the courage to take action. "She's alive," Daniel said firmly, "and I'm not letting her die on the street." The guard frowned but did not move closer. Behind him, the crowd whispered again, voices sharp and cruel. "She belongs to the shadows. She carries poison in her blood. Let her die, it is safer for all of us." Daniel turned his back on them. He tightened his hold on the girl and walked away. The crowd parted like water, afraid to brush against him, afraid to touch the one he carried. Their eyes followed him, wide with fear, some with anger. By the time he left the market, sweat lined his forehead. Not from the weight, but from the knowledge that he had crossed a line. Whatever had caused the girl to collapse, whatever reason made the crowd whisper and fear her, he had taken it upon himself. He glanced down at her face. She looked peaceful now, as if she had fallen into deep sleep. But Daniel knew it was not peace, it was the edge of death. And somewhere deep inside him, a single thought took root. This was not chance. This was the start of something far bigger. Daniel walked through the narrow streets with the alien girl in his arms. Her body felt cold despite the heat of the twin suns above. Every step he took echoed in his head, not from the weight but from the heavy stares of the market crowd still behind him. He could feel their eyes pressing into his back like knives of judgment. The girl's breathing was shallow, each rise of her chest weaker than the last. Daniel adjusted his grip, holding her close as if she might slip away at any moment. Whispers followed him. The sound was soft at first, like the rustling of leaves, but soon grew louder, more threatening. He touched her. The human doesn't know what she is. Death follows her kind. The words chased him down the street, clinging to his ears like shadows. Daniel kept walking, jaw tight. He had never believed in curses or strange alien superstitions. On Earth, he had seen people invent stories to hide cruelty. They had always said, "Don't get involved, it's not your problem." But he had made a choice long ago to step in even when no one else would. Still, the whispers unsettled him. It wasn't just fear in their voices. It was something else, something sharper, like hatred. He turned a corner, heading toward the quieter part of the city where his small workshop stood. His boots struck the cracked stones as the smells of spice and smoke faded. Yet even here, the whispers seemed to follow. He glanced behind him. The street was empty, but he felt watched. The girl stirred in his arms. Her eyes opened just a little, glowing faintly like dying stars. Her lips trembled as if she wanted to speak. Daniel leaned closer. "Save yourself," she whispered, barely a breath. Then her head fell against his chest again. Daniel froze for a moment. Save himself from what? He shook the thought away and pushed forward. His workshop wasn't far, just a few more turns through the back alleys. As he walked, he noticed shadows shifting at the corners of buildings. Quick, silent movements that vanished when he turned his head. His instincts screamed at him he was being followed. Whoever they were, they didn't want to be seen. Finally, he reached the workshop, a small structure tucked between taller alien stone houses. He kicked the door open and stepped inside, laying the girl gently on the old wooden table he used for repairs. The room smelled of metal and oil, tools scattered across the shelves. It was not a place for healing, but it was all he had. Daniel hurried to fetch water, dipping a cloth and pressing it against the girl's forehead. Her skin burned with fever. Outside, faint voices drifted through the cracks in the window. Is she alive? The human still protects her. Fool, he has no idea what he carries. Daniel stiffened. They had followed him. He moved silently to the door and pressed his ear against it. He could hear footsteps in the alley, slow and deliberate, as if waiting. The girl coughed weakly, breaking the silence. Daniel turned back to her. Her eyes flickered open again. Clearer this time, but filled with fear. She tried to lift a hand, but it trembled too much. "They will come," she whispered. "They always come." Daniel's stomach twisted. "Who?" he asked softly, but her strength was gone. Her hand fell and she slipped back into unconsciousness. Daniel exhaled, running a hand over his face. Whoever she wasn't just a stranger who collapsed in a market. She was someone hunted, someone dangerous to stand beside, and yet he couldn't bring himself to leave her. He moved to the shelves, pulling down scraps of cloth and a small medkit he had brought from Earth. It wasn't much, just simple supplies, bandages, a few injections, an antiseptic, but maybe it would help. He worked quietly, cleaning the strange burns on her arms, covering them with bandages. The marks looked deliberate, as if someone had branded her with heat. As he worked, the voices outside grew quieter but not gone. He knew they were waiting, watching. Suddenly, a stone struck the door with a dull thud. Daniel froze, eyes snapping toward it. Another stone hit the window, rattling the frame. "A warning! Leave her out, human!" A voice hissed from the alley. "If you value your life, drop her in the street." Daniel's fists tightened. He didn't reply. Instead, he moved to the table and checked the girl's pulse again. Weak, but still there. He looked at her fragile form, the way her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. And he thought of the market, how everyone else had looked away. He thought of her whisper, "Save yourself." "No," he muttered under his breath. "Not this time." Daniel went to the door, locking it tight, then dragged a heavy crate in front of it. He moved quickly, securing the window shutters with metal bars. If they came, they would have to fight their way in. As he worked, the voices outside faded into the night. Silence returned, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Daniel glanced back at the girl. She looked small and fragile on the table, but something about her seemed larger, like a storm herself, hidden just beneath the surface, and for the first time, Daniel wondered if he had just stepped into something far greater than he understood. Night fell over the city and the alien streets emptied. Markets that had been alive with noise only hours ago were now silent, their glowing lamps flickering weakly. The air carried the faint smell of smoke and spice, but the quiet was heavy. Too heavy. Inside his workshop, Daniel sat near the girl, listening to her shallow breathing. He had placed a blanket over her thin frame, but her body still trembled with fever. Drops of sweat glistened on her forehead. Every few minutes she let out a soft sound, half whisper, half pain. Daniel leaned back, rubbing his tired eyes. His instincts screamed at him. Danger was close, and he was right. In the alley outside, shadows moved. 3 figures stood near the corner, half hidden in the darkness. Their bodies were tall and cloaked, their eyes glowing faintly like embers. They had followed him since the market, patient and silent. Now they waited for the right moment. "She cannot live," one whispered in a sharp voice. "The human delays the inevitable," another hissed. "We strike when the signal comes," the third replied, unmoving. Inside, Daniel poured water into a cup, placing it near the girl's lips. She stirred, her eyelids trembling. For a moment, her glowing blue eyes opened. They fixed on him, weak but alert. "They are here," she murmured. Daniel froze. "Who?" She swallowed, her voice breaking. "Hunters. They follow me. They will not stop." Her words sent a chill through him. Hunters. That explained the whispers, the fear in the market, the voices outside his door. She was being hunted, not cursed. And now, because he had picked her up, so was he. Before he could answer, a faint sound scraped against the window, a claw dragging across wood. Daniel's muscles tensed. He set the cup down and reached for the heavy wrench on his workbench. It wasn't a weapon, but it was solid steel. Another sound followed, a soft tap at the door. Then silence. Daniel held his breath. He knew better than to open it. He moved instead to the window, pulling the curtain just slightly aside. In the alley, 2 glowing eyes stared back at him. The figure outside smiled, revealing sharp teeth, then vanished into the shadows. Daniel's heart pounded. They weren't just watching. They were toying with him, testing his fear. He turned back to the girl. "Why are they after you?" he asked, his voice firm. Her breathing quickened. For a moment, she looked terrified to speak. Then, in a hoarse whisper, she answered, "Because of what I am." Before Daniel could press her further, something hit the door hard. The wood groaned under the force. Dust shook from the walls. The girl's eyes widened. "They found me." Daniel rushed to the door, pressing the crate harder against it. Another blow followed, stronger this time. The hinges rattled. From outside came a hissed voice. "Give her to us, human. This is not your fight." Daniel gripped the wrench tighter, anger burning in his chest. "Then you made it mine," he muttered. Silence answered him, then a low chuckle. The sound crawled under his skin. Daniel hurried back to the table, kneeling beside the girl. "If I don't give you up, what happens?" She looked at him, tears gathering in her glowing eyes. "They kill you. They kill anyone who helps me." Daniel studied her face, fragile, broken, yet filled with something more, a quiet strength hidden beneath her weakness. He could have left her in the market. He could have ignored her like everyone else. But now it was too late. He had chosen. Another strike slammed into the door. This time a crack split down the wood. The crate shook. Daniel's breath came slow, steady. He forced calm into his body even as his mind screamed. "If they want her," he whispered to himself, "they'll have to go through me." The girl reached out, her trembling fingers brushing against his arm. "You don't understand," she whispered. "They are not just hunters. They are shadows. They kill without mercy. No one escapes them." Daniel covered her hand with his own. Maybe no one tried hard enough. The door shuddered again. The lock bent. The crack widened. Daniel moved quickly, gathering tools, wrenches, pipes, even a welding torch. Not weapons of soldiers, but weapons of survival. He lined them near the table, ready for when the hunters broke through. The girl's voice came again, weak but urgent. "You should run, leave me. They will not chase you if I am gone." Daniel shook his head. "Not happening." Her eyes searched his, as if trying to understand why. Finally, she whispered, almost to herself, "Why would a human care?" Daniel didn't answer. Another slam rocked the door louder than before. Wood splintered, the crate groaning under the pressure. Outside, he heard low laughter, cruel and certain. He stood tall, wrench in hand, heart beating steady. He had no armor, no soldiers, no reason to fight except one, because she was alive, and as long as she breathed, he would not let them take her. The final strike came, the door bursting inward, shards flying across the room. The hunters stepped into the light, cloaked figures, eyes burning like fire, claws gleaming in the dark, and Daniel, one human alone, stood in their way. The wooden door lay broken, splinters scattered across the workshop floor. Cold night air rushed inside, carrying with it the smell of dust and metal. 3 shadowed hunters stepped in, their movements slow, confident like predators cornering prey, their glowing red eyes locked on the girl lying weakly on the table. Daniel stood between them and her, gripping the heavy wrench so tight his knuckles turned white. His chest rose and fell, but his eyes stayed sharp. He had faced danger before, but never like this. One of the hunters tilted his head, speaking in a low, rumbling voice. "Human, step aside. She is not yours. She belongs to the void." Daniel spat to the side. "She belongs to no one." The hunter chuckled darkly. The sound made the walls vibrate. "You don't understand. Protecting her will only bring your death." Daniel raised the wrench. "Then let's see you try." The nearest hunter lunged, claws flashing in the dim light. Daniel swung the wrench with all his strength, striking the creature's arm. The impact cracked bone, and the hunter howled in rage, staggering back. Daniel's heart pounded. One hit and they could be hurt. Not unstoppable after all, but there were 2 more. The second hunter rushed forward, but Daniel kicked over a crate, sending tools scattering across the floor. The creature slipped for a second, giving Daniel just enough time to grab the welding torch from his workbench. He flicked it on, the bright blue flame lighting the room. The hunters paused, hissing at the sudden fire. Their cloaks shifted like living shadows. Behind him, the girl stirred. Her weak voice cut through the chaos. "Stop. Don't fight them head on. You can't win." Daniel didn't take his eyes off the hunters. "Then tell me what I'm really fighting. Who are they? And who are you?" Her eyes glowed faintly, filled with pain. For a moment she hesitated. Then the words came out, slow but heavy. "They are the Shadow Claws, assassins of the High Council. They hunt bloodlines that must never return." Daniel's grip tightened on the torch. "And you?" She swallowed, her voice breaking. "I am the last daughter of House Sarath. My family ruled before the council. They feared us. They destroyed us, and now I am all that's left." The words struck Daniel harder than any claw. He finally understood. The whispers in the market, the fear, the hunters. She wasn't cursed. She was hunted because of who she was. Because she carried a name her enemies wanted erased. The first hunter growled, clutching his injured arm. "She speaks truth, human. Her blood is forbidden. She must not survive." Daniel's eyes burned with anger. He looked back at the girl, trembling and broken on his table. He remembered the way everyone in the market had turned away, letting her collapse. And now he knew why. They were all too afraid to touch history. But Daniel didn't care about history. He cared that she was alive. "You want her," he said, raising the torch higher. "You'll have to kill me first." The hunters snarled, spreading out to surround him. One moved toward the window, another toward the side wall. They were ready to strike from all angles. Daniel's mind raced. He couldn't fight them all in the open. He needed a trick. He grabbed a small canister of fuel from the shelf and rolled it across the floor. The hunters eyed it but didn't react. Daniel bent low, torch still burning. "Come closer," he muttered. The first hunter leapt forward. Daniel dropped the torch onto the spilled fuel. Fire erupted across the floor, roaring upward in a wall of heat. The hunters screamed, shadows twisting wildly as the flames cut them off. Daniel pulled the girl into his arms again, lifting her from the table. She gasped weakly, her body light and fragile. The fire spread quickly, filling the room with smoke. "We need to go," Daniel said, his voice rough. She looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. "You don't understand. Saving me will bring war." Daniel pushed through the smoke toward the back exit. "Then let it come." They burst into the alley, the night air cool against their skin. Behind them, the workshop burned, fire swallowing wood and tools alike. The hunters hissed inside, trapped for the moment. But Daniel knew it wouldn't last. He ran through the twisting alleys, carrying her close. The city was quiet, but every corner seemed filled with eyes. The girl whispered again, her voice like a ghost in his ear. "You don't know what you've done. By lifting me from the ground, you've chosen a side." Daniel's breath came heavy, his muscles burning. Then tell me everything. No more secrets. She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her face. I was meant to die in the market. That's why they poisoned me. If I lived, if anyone saw me, hope would return. And the council fears hope more than anything. Daniel slowed for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. She wasn't just a lost girl. She was a symbol. Keeping her alive wasn't just kindness, it was defiance. Far behind them, a howl echoed through the night. The hunters were free. Daniel tightened his hold on her and kept running. The narrow alleys twisted like a maze as Daniel carried the girl deeper into the sleeping city. His lungs burned, but he didn't stop. Behind him, distant howls and screeches echoed, signals of hunters regrouping. The fire he set in his workshop had bought him time, but not enough. The girl stirred in his arms, whispering in a broken voice, "They won't stop." The shadow claws never stop. Daniel looked down at her pale face. Then we keep moving. The alleys opened into a wider square where abandoned carts and broken stalls stood in silence. The place smelled of rust and rain, though the skies were clear. Daniel set the girl gently against one of the carts, scanning the rooftops. Every shadow looked alive. He picked up a rusted pipe lying nearby, testing its weight. It wasn't much, but it was something. His wrench was gone, left behind in the flames of the workshop. Suddenly, a low hiss crawled through the night air. Daniel spun. 3 figures dropped from the rooftops, their cloaks spreading like wings. Red eyes glowed in the darkness, their claws glinting. The hunters had found him. One stepped forward, taller than the rest. His voice rumbled like stone grinding. "Human, last chance. Leave her. Walk away." Daniel tightened his grip on the pipe. "You already know my answer." The hunter smiled, baring jagged teeth. "Then you die first." They rushed him. The first swung claws at his chest. Daniel ducked low, swinging the pipe upward with raw strength. The metal smashed into the creature's jaw, snapping its head back. The alien howled in pain, stumbling sideways. The second came from the left, moving faster than Daniel's eyes could follow. But Daniel had fought before, on Earth's streets in wars no alien had seen. Instinct saved him. He kicked a broken cart, sending it crashing into the hunter's legs. The creature fell hard, snarling as it tried to rise. But the third was already behind him. Claws slashed across Daniel's back, tearing fabric and drawing blood. He grunted in pain, dropping to one knee. The hunter raised his arm for the killing blow. "Daniel!" the girl cried, her voice weak but sharp. He twisted at the last second, shoving the pipe upward into the hunter's ribs. A sickening crack followed. The creature staggered back, wheezing, its cloak twisting violently. Daniel rose again, blood soaking his shirt, pipe still in his hands. He panted, sweat dripping down his face. His body screamed with pain, but his eyes burned with fury. "You'll have to do better than that," he spat. The hunters hissed, regrouping. Their eyes narrowed with hatred. They had expected an easy kill. Instead, the human had drawn blood. Behind him, the girl struggled to sit up, her glowing eyes watching him with disbelief. No one had ever fought the shadow claws for her. No one had ever survived this long. The leader growled, "Enough. Kill him. Take her." They attacked together this time. Daniel swung the pipe wide, knocking one aside, but the second clawed at his arm, tearing deep. Pain exploded through him, but he refused to drop the weapon. He headbutted the creature in front of him, hearing bone crack. The third lunged, claws aimed for his throat. Daniel fell backward, dragging the hunter down with him. They rolled across the ground, struggling, snarling like animals. Daniel jammed the pipe against the hunter's neck, pushing with all his strength. The alien thrashed, claws ripping into his side. Blood poured, but Daniel didn't let go. With one last roar, he twisted the pipe and the hunter went still. Silence fell for a breath. Then the other two howled in rage. Daniel staggered to his feet, chest heaving, pipe slick with blood. His vision blurred, but he stood tall. The girl crawled toward him, her weak hands reaching. "Stop, they'll kill you." Daniel shook his head. "Not while I can stand." The hunters circled him again, slower now, more cautious. They had seen their brother fall. The human was not prey. He was dangerous. Daniel raised the pipe again, swaying slightly but ready. "Come on then," he growled. "Let's finish this." The hunters paused, their eyes flickering. Then to his surprise, they stepped back. The leader's voice hissed low. "This is not over. You cannot protect her forever." With that, they leapt back to the rooftops, vanishing into the night. Daniel stood in the empty square, chest burning, blood dripping down his arms and back. His legs trembled, but he stayed on his feet until he was sure they were gone. Finally, he dropped the pipe, falling to one knee. His breath came ragged, his body screaming for rest. The girl crawled to him, tears streaking her face. She placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. Why do this for me? Daniel looked at her, pain in his eyes but also steel. Because no one else would. She stared at him, her heart racing. For the first time since her family's fall, she felt something she had forgotten long ago. Hope. But in the shadows above, unseen eyes still watched. The first attack had failed. The hunters would return, and next time they would not come alone. The square was silent again, broken only by the sound of Daniel's heavy breathing. His arms shook, his shirt was torn and soaked with blood, but he still stood tall. The hunters had vanished into the night, but he knew it wasn't victory. It was only a pause. The alien girl leaned against the broken cart, staring at him with wide, glowing eyes. Her body trembled, not only from fever, but from something else. Shock. She had seen many brave beings fall to the shadow claws, but this human, broken and bleeding, still stood between her and death. "You should have left me," she whispered, her voice weak. "They won't stop. Not until I am dead." Daniel turned his tired gaze on her. "Then let them keep coming. I won't hand you over." Her lips parted in disbelief. No one had ever said that to her. Not even her own people. Before she could reply, the sound of heavy boots echoed from the far end of the alley. Daniel turned quickly, pipe in hand again, but these were not hunters. City guards marched into the square, their armor shining faintly under the moonlight. The captain, a tall alien with sharp blue skin and hard eyes, raised his hand. "Human, step away from her." Daniel didn't move. His grip on the pipe tightened. "Why?" "She is forbidden," the captain said coldly. "The council has ordered her erased. If you value your life, leave her here." The guards spread out, forming a half circle. Their spears gleamed, and their faces were unreadable. Daniel realized something bitter in that moment. They weren't here to protect him. They weren't here to fight the hunters. They were here to finish the same job. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She knew what this meant. Even her city, her people wanted her gone. She whispered, "Do it. Give me to them. Save yourself." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked from her fragile form to the line of armored guards. He could walk away now. He could live. All he had to do was take one step back. The captain raised his voice. "Human, you have fought well, but this isn't your battle. Hand her over. You owe us nothing." Daniel's heart pounded. His muscles screamed from the wounds. Every logical thought told him to let go, to leave her. She was not human. She was not his problem. But then he remembered the market, the way everyone had turned their heads as she collapsed, the way they whispered curses instead of offering help. He remembered her faint voice begging him to save himself. And he remembered the promise he had made long ago. "Never again will I look away." Slowly, Daniel bent down. The girl closed her eyes, believing he would finally leave her. But instead he slid his arms under her once more, lifting her from the ground. She gasped softly, her eyes snapping open in shock. Daniel faced the captain, his voice steady despite the blood dripping from his wounds. "If she falls with me." "Not alone." The square went silent. Even the guards hesitated, stunned by his words. The captain's eyes narrowed. "You would defy the council for her?" Daniel nodded. "I don't care about your council. I care that she's alive. And as long as she breathes, I'll stand with her." The girl pressed her face into his chest, her tears soaking into his torn shirt. She had been abandoned by everyone she once trusted. Yet this stranger, this human, carried her as if she was worth more than the world. The captain's hand twitched, as if he wanted to give the order to attack. But something in Daniel's eyes made him pause. The human's gaze was not desperate, not afraid. It was unshakable. Finally, the captain lowered his spear slightly. "You're a fool," he spat. "Her presence will bring war. You cannot protect her forever." Daniel adjusted his hold on the girl, standing tall despite his injuries. "Maybe not forever. But tonight she's safe." The guards did not move closer. One by one they stepped back into the shadows, their eyes cold but uncertain. The captain was the last to leave, his final words hanging heavy in the air. "You've chosen your side, human. When the council's wrath falls, remember this moment." And then they were gone. Daniel stood alone again, holding the girl close. His body trembled, but his spirit did not. He looked down at her, his voice softer now. "You're not alone anymore." Her eyes filled with tears once more, but this time they weren't only of fear. They carried something else. A fragile hope. Far above them on the rooftops, the shadow claws watched in silence. They had seen the human's choice. They had seen the loyalty that bound him to her, and in that choice they saw danger, because loyalty was a power even assassins feared. The city was still asleep when the storm came. Not thunder, not rain, but the silent march of hunters. Cloaked figures moved across the rooftops, dozens this time, their glowing red eyes cutting through the night. The shadow claws had returned, not 3, not 5, but an army. Inside a ruined storage hall at the edge of the city, Daniel sat with his back against a broken pillar. His wounds burned, his shirt stiff with dried blood. The alien girl lay beside him, wrapped in a torn blanket. She had gained a little strength, enough to sit up and watch him as he cleaned his makeshift weapon, a bent steel bar. "You can't fight them all," she whispered, her voice still weak but steady. Daniel glanced at her, his jaw set. "Doesn't matter. I'll try." Her glowing blue eyes searched his face. "Why? You barely know me." He tightened the grip on the steel bar. "Because someone should have helped you in that market. Because someone should stand up. If no one else will, then it's me." Her throat tightened, tears forming again. For the first time in her life, she was not a burden, not a curse, not a target. She was someone worth protecting. The silence outside broke. The roof groaned under heavy steps. Then the hall's walls shook as claws scratched against stone. The hunters had arrived. Daniel stood, placing himself in front of her. "Stay low. No matter what happens, don't give up." The first window shattered. A cloaked hunter slipped inside, eyes glowing. Then another. Then 5 more. In seconds, the hall filled with shadows. The leader stepped forward, taller and darker than the rest. His voice was cold as iron, human. "You could have lived. Instead, you chose her. Tonight, you both die." Daniel raised the steel bar, his voice steady. "Then come and take her." The hunters attacked. Daniel swung with raw fury, striking the first in the head. Bone cracked, the hunter falling. Another lunged, claws cutting his arm, but Daniel smashed the bar into its ribs, forcing it back. He fought like a cornered wolf, every strike filled with desperate strength. But there were too many. Claws tore across his side. A heavy blow knocked him to the ground. The steel bar clattered away. Daniel gasped, blood filling his mouth. The hunters closed in, hissing with triumph. The girl screamed. "No!" Something inside her broke, awakened. Her eyes blazed brighter than ever before, glowing like twin suns. Energy surged through her fragile body, lifting her to her feet. Her voice rang through the hall, shaking the walls. "Enough!" Light exploded from her, a storm of blue fire rushing outward. The hunters staggered, their cloaks twisting wildly, their bodies burning under the energy. They howled, their shadows melting away. Daniel shielded his eyes, barely able to see. But when the light dimmed, he looked up and froze. The girl no longer looked fragile. Her body shimmered with power, her silver hair floating as if caught in a wind only she could feel. Her glowing eyes locked on the hunters with fury. One of them whispered in fear, "She is awakened." The air of Sarathe. The hunters lunged again, but this time it was different. The girl raised her hand and the ground itself shook. Blue flames erupted, striking the hunters one by one. They screamed as their bodies dissolved into ash. Daniel struggled to rise, his body weak, but he couldn't look away. This was her true self, the one the council feared, the one they had tried to erase. The leader roared, leaping at her with claws raised. But she met him head-on, her hand glowing brighter than the stars. She caught his strike and whispered, "You hunted me my whole life. Tonight it ends." A burst of light swallowed him. When it faded, nothing remained but dust. The hall fell silent. The remaining hunters fled into the night, their courage broken. The shadow claws were defeated. The girl turned slowly, her glowing eyes softening as they fell on Daniel. Her strength wavered and she collapsed to her knees. Daniel staggered forward, catching her before she hit the ground. She leaned against him, her power fading, tears streaming down her face. "You saved me," she whispered. "But more than that, you gave me a reason to live." Daniel smiled weakly, his body shaking. "No one deserves to be left behind, not you, not anyone." For a long moment they sat together in the ruined hall, surrounded by silence and ashes. The city slept on, unaware that its history had just changed forever. The alien girl closed her eyes, whispering one last truth. Because of you, the blood of Sarathi lives. Hope lives. Daniel held her close, his voice steady despite the pain. Then hope has a chance, and I'll fight for it as long as I breathe. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the city. A new day had begun.